Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is showtime. Welcome to the December 11th monthly free web class. My name's Benji. We'll be joined by Mark in a second. Thank you all for joining us. As we get bums in seats, I'd love to do a little icebreaker. And so it's time for the age-old debate. In the chat box, will you please let me know, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Yes or no? People have this is a very, very polarizing topic. Many family fights have been started as a result. Thomas says yes. Rory says yes. Brady Crabtree says abso-effing-lutely. He feels strongly about it. We haven't had a single no yet. Interesting. Okay. Ryan is the first no. So I was not expecting this to be this tilted. There's a lot of yeses for Die Hard being a Christmas movie. Ryan, it looks like you're on an island on this one. Speaking of Christmas movie, I want to give a quick shout out to my clothing sponsor today. As you can see, I'm dressed very festively. Big shout out to the Great Canadian Landscaping Company. This is their 25th year edition shirt, which Chris graciously gave me, as well as the hat. Big congrats to you guys for hitting that milestone. I think it was last year, but I've been waiting to wear this shirt, and it felt right given the season. So, if anyone on the GCLC team is listening, just want to say how much we appreciate you guys. All right, let's dive in. Everyone is here. The Die Hard debate is being settled. My clothing sponsor is being mentioned. It's time to get into today's session. So today we're going to talk about this: avoid a blame-filled 2026. 5 systems to fix accountability before it fails. And I wanted to share with you a quick thought on this word accountability before we get into our systems and Mark starts teaching. I feel like this term accountability is one of those buzzwords that gets thrown around a lot and very rarely gets explained, and very few people understand how to do this well. The fact of the matter is, most contractors, most landscapers aren't the best at holding people accountable, because most humans, broadly speaking, aren't the best at holding people accountable. I had a huge unlock when someone explained it to me this way. I had someone on the podcast and we were talking about accountability, and he said, Benji, what's the root word of accountability? And I said, well, account. It's account. And he says, what does an accountant do? And I was like, well, an accountant kind of keeps track of your numbers. He's on top of these systems. He pays attention to what's going on. And he said, exactly. So accountability is not about being a tyrant. It's not about enforcing rules, although that's, in certain moments, there is a little bit of that you have to do. But businesses that have really tight accountability, it's not because they're insanely strict. It's not because they yell at the top of their lungs. It's because they keep account of what's happening in their company. And they have systems, like an accountant has systems, that allow them to see exactly what's going on, keep tabs on everything. And for me, when I thought about it that way, everything became a lot easier. Accountability is not about yelling and screaming and rules and strictness. It is about implementing systems, and Mark's going to teach us about 5 of them today that allow us to keep account on what's going on in our business. And I would encourage you to think about it that way, because it's a much easier way to get your head around the topic, and it's way more effective. So that's the session ahead of us. Purpose for today: teach you the foundational systems your team needs to stay aligned and in sync this busy season. That's it. Outcomes really straightforward are you understand why accountability has been lacking in your business, and you leave with 5 new, easy to implement accountability systems to address this. Okay. By the end of the hour, that's our promise to you. Agenda is really simple. We're going to do some intros. We're going to talk about why this topic matters. We're going to go through 5 solutions, do a little Q&A at the end. You know the roadmap if you've been here before. So that's what we're doing. Who are we? I'm Benji. Mark is going to say hi in a second. I'm the EVP of Community Growth here at LeanScaper. Mark is our fearless leader and founder, and he's going to take over the microphone in a minute. But for those of you that haven't been to a LeanScaper event, a LeanScaper webinar, this is maybe your first time meeting us. There could be a few of you. We're on a mission, right? And it's a simple one. We want to empower landscapers to build thriving businesses by putting people first, developing strong leaders, skilled teams, and a culture of continuous growth. Now, how do we do that? Well, we've built something that we call the LeanScaper operating system. right? We have a system to do that. This system happens to be powered by AI. And if you've been on Lana, you've been on our product before, you've started to see how powerful this is. And so when we talk about all of our sessions, like the one we're on today, this accountability conversation and the systems therein come from a larger operating system. And what we're going to talk about today is pretty focused on the people component of that. But I'm just trying to show you where this topic comes from. There's a bigger infrastructure that it's nestled inside of. Now, my last bit of advice here to get the most out of the next hour is to get LeanScaper.ai if you have not yet. So if you are in Accelerator, you've been to one of these before, you have this already, great, just get it open. If you don't, you would be smart to get it. Email and password is all you need. It's about a 1-minute sign on. There's going to be some advice. There's going to be some prompts. Mark's going to dish a few ideas around how to use LeanScaper AI to build some of these systems much faster. So we're going to cover the framework at a high level. If you want to actually create this in your own business with some speed and with some precision, LeanScaper AI is the way that you do that. And you can sign up for that at LeanScaper.ai. It's about a 1-minute sign on. Very, very straightforward. Okay. Mark, you're back. We ready to dive into our 5 lessons today?
Yes, I'm here. All right.
Okay, I'm gonna ditch
Thanks,
screen
Benji.
share, and then Christian is gonna throw it up for us so we can see your vibe board. And there we go. Hope
Excellent.
season
There we
versus
go.
reality season. Take it away.
Thanks for the intro, Benji. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here. As always, I know how difficult it is to break away from the work and show up here. So I appreciate you being here. I'll try to add a little value and shed a little bit of light on what we do here at LeanScaper and what systems I think are often missing for landscapers. Over the years, building LMN, building my own company, working with thousands of companies, what I really started to realize deploying software for so many companies is that often there's just these foundational systems that are missing in businesses that really make it impossible for them to truly improve. And I know that sounds kind of, typical. There's systems missing, so people don't improve. But today I wanted to talk about what those foundational systems are that I think many companies may have, but don't really create enough of a rhythm around to make sure that the company actually gets better each year. We all get busy in the fall, and oftentimes we're just flat out burned out and exhausted by the time the holidays hit. And luckily, they're right here upon us, so we're all about to get a little break. But I really wanted to kind of help, hopefully, help you create a little bit of intention around what you're going to do in Q1 to actually create a different life for yourself. Oftentimes we think about fixing the business, and we're always motivated to make the business better, make it a little bit smoother operation, make it better for the customers and our team and for us. But I think all too often we go into the planning season in January and February without enough intention of what it is that we're actually going to change in the business that will enable us to actually have a better life, not just a better business, but a better life. We're not actually setting out to just create a business that produces more money. Let's not forget that we all start businesses or we work as leaders in businesses to provide for ourselves and for our families. And part of that is providing more time for ourselves and our families. I think what most people are missing is time. That's the one thing money can't buy. And so as we start to think about making big efforts over January and February to create a better life for ourselves, not just a better business, there's some foundational things that I think need to be in place to make the business a little better so that your life gets a bit better. Because like one thing I often have asked myself this time of year is, what am I actually going to do next year that's going to create a better life for me and my family? I don't want to just simply go out there building more and more systems that might actually just make my life more and more complicated. I've done that many times, and I can tell you, it just perpetuates the burnout. In fact, you end up feeling burned out sooner in the year, if not all year. So today I just want to talk about the rhythms. So obviously we all set out to make life easier when we create our systems, but sometimes we forget that when we build systems, we also have to have people who understand the systems. And if you're like me, over the years, I built lots of systems on my own in January and February. And what I thought I was building was this machine, this business that was going to just run itself. And the problem is when you build systems in a bubble on your own, other people kind of get handed systems that, first off, they didn't buy into. And worse yet, they're probably a little half baked. And in my case, for sure, mine were always a little half baked. I'm really good at starting things, but I'm not always that good at filling in every blank. And the people around me then actually get handed these hot potato systems that are broken. And very quickly, as they start using them, they would realize that there's a few things missing and maybe the system's really not worth using. So they kind of revert back to having no systems at all. And what I kind of learned throughout my career is when I slow down a little bit and I focus on building the people first and building the systems with them, then not only are they learning the system, but they're helping to build it. And therefore, they take a lot more ownership in not just running that system, but making it better, because we never get the system perfect on the first pass. And let's face it, as the business is growing and things are changing, we keep breaking the systems. So we need people who understand what it is that we're trying to achieve, and then they can get a lot more involved in helping to build the business. So I really want to kind of rally around this one theme, which is build the leaders, build the systems, and then you build the machine, or it's kind of almost a byproduct of that. So I'll kind of beat that point home over and over here today, but we're going to build the leaders, build the systems, and then build a machine. Now, if we kind of think about this from the most, I think, basic perspective, we have to kind of realize that most companies don't really fail at deploying new systems and making things better or scaling each year, the age-old word scaling everybody likes to drop. We really don't fail on scaling a business because we've got the wrong people. What happens is we fail to build systems that enable people. And I think many times, and I've done this myself, so please always know I'm never pointing at you. Even though it might feel like it, I'm actually talking about myself. For many, many years, I would get to the end of the year and say, well, I just didn't have the right people this year. I have to hire some better people, and then next year will go better. And sometimes that's true. I'm not saying that's never the case, but in my experience, I think what I kept doing for many, many years, and I see a lot of other business owners doing the same, is at the end of the year when you're exhausted and things didn't quite go right, maybe you didn't have enough profit, or maybe you didn't quite hit your sales goal, or maybe things just don't feel right. We oftentimes just blame somebody else. And it's easy to do that. I think we're wired to do that. Let's just blame the people. But the reality is if the business isn't quite right and you're the leader or one of the senior leaders, then you made it that way. And I think it's more important that you actually own it. Because when you blame the people that, let's not forget, you probably hired, you're not really blaming the right person. I think you got to look in the mirror and say, well, maybe I didn't hire the right people, but wait a minute, it's probably more likely that when I hired them, I didn't help them succeed by sharing the responsibility and creating systems. Because I think what we do when we get overwhelmed is we hire other people and we expect that they solve our problems. And that's really not reasonable. I think when we're hiring other people to help us lead our companies and operate our companies, what we should be doing is expecting to work alongside them to grow them and also grow some systems that make the business a bit better. Now, I'm not saying to hire people who come with no skills. I'm actually suggesting that you hire people who have all the skills that you might not have. I might want to hire a full-fledged accountant to help me with finance. I might want to hire somebody who's had all kinds of experience working with stone to help me do stonemasonry. an expert at operations who's worked in a larger company than mine to help me smooth out the operation. Maybe I want to hire a fractional CMO to help me build a better brand strategy. I'm hiring these experts because ideally they come with experience that I don't have. But that doesn't mean that I could just disappear. What that means is now I'm going to work with this leader who has some area domain expertise that I don't, to then craft some systems and processes that work within my business. But at no point should I expect that they just do it on their own. That's impossible because they don't have the context of everything in the business to possibly get it right. And oftentimes, when we ignore these people after we hire them during the 30, 60, 90-day onboarding period, they start to get more and more uncomfortable, and we can feel the energy shifting. And very quickly thereafter, we kind of know it's over. Within those first 3 months, if you've made a hire and you haven't spent the time to first identify the problems that you're hoping to have their help solving, there's going to be nothing but pain downstream. First, we have to identify the problems. And in the first 30 days with a new hire, we want to figure that out together. Like, hey, what is it that we're solving? Let's look at reality together. And then let's figure out what we're going to do about it. And then between day 30 and 60, then we can start to say, hey, let's start to deploy some new systems or build some things that are going to help. And then, from day 60 to 90, we start to deploy these things. And then from that point forward, we're iterating and we're getting better and better and better, finding new problems, deploying new systems. But as I said, we have to build that person before we start to really think that we're going to have a machine. If you're like me, for many years, I thought I'd build a machine, then people and systems would sort of, kind of flow from there. But that's not how it works. It's always people, systems, and then the machine's more or less a byproduct. And the systems that I want to kind of talk about today are key foundational components of enabling people to really come into your company and add value. Again, we shouldn't be saying, oh, I've got all the wrong people. We should be saying, I'm missing some systems and I don't have them yet, but that's what I'm going to do with my people. And again, once in a while, we have to bring in some fresh talent, but we shouldn't just be blaming everyone around us. So, one thing off the start that I think happens all too often is there isn't enough clarity when somebody comes into the company, or even when somebody's been with you for a long time, around what they actually do and where they fit into the overall org and what everybody else does and what they're responsibility for. And so the most common thing that I hear, and it's definitely something that's come out of my own mouth many times, is there's no accountability here in the company. Now, if you're saying that and you're the leader, that in itself is actually kind of ridiculous. Now, I'm not here to beat you up because we've all said it out loud, but the truth is, if there's no accountability in your business, that's because you've made it that way. And I think it's really important for all of us to reflect and say, if that's the way it is, and I don't know how to fix it, then I'm going to need some help figuring out how to fix it. Because otherwise, if I don't know how to create accountability, then my life is going to look exactly the way it looks right now at the end of next year. Maybe I'm doing more revenue, and maybe miraculously I'm a little bit more profitable, and maybe I've got a couple of extra trucks and a bigger shop and a nicer office. But did my life actually get any better? Because it's not going to get any better unless you find a way to share the responsibility, to create a culture where people actually care, and a system where they achieve more when the company achieves more. And that is a system. And when we've got that system, we can then count on accountability to be a byproduct of this. Now, it starts with an org chart. I need to identify what the roles are on that org chart, and I need to get really clear on how it all fits together to make sure that I've got roles that fill all of the needs on the org chart. And here at LeanScaper, the way that we like to look at the business is very simple. there's 4 pillars. We want to make sure that we've got our finance pillar right, because if we don't figure out our finances, our budgeting, our pricing, our job costing, our cash flow management, if we can't figure that out, we don't have fuel for the business. We have to make sure that our financial model works. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how good we are at doing the work. It doesn't matter how shiny our trucks are. And it actually wouldn't even matter how great of people we have. If our financial model's broken, everything's broken. So we want to get that right. And next, we want to make sure that our revenue model makes sense. That first off, we've got the brand that people want to do business with, that we've got a marketing program that creates demand and allows us to communicate with our prospects and with our customers in a way where they want to do business with us. Then we've got to have a sales process, and that sales process has to make the buying experience feel right to the customers. We want to make sure that we can present value so that we're not actually competing on price, but rather competing on service and capability and the outcomes that we're actually providing. And when we've got that figured out, then we start to think about people. Do we have the right people to fulfill that promise that we're making with our marketing and our sales? And building people, as we all know, is no easy feat. For the past 20 years, I've polled my customers every year on what their biggest problem is. And I can tell you that by far, 97% of the companies always come back with the same issue. I've got a people problem. I can't find good people. I don't have good people. I don't have a motivated staff. I'm not getting the production that I need. I'm not getting the sales that I need. And every single time when we've done those exercises with clients for many years, what I always noticed is there tends to be this incredible ability to blame others. When we ask the why, it quickly is like, these people don't exist. That is not the truth. If you can't find the people, that means you're not the leader that you need to be yet to find the people, attract the people, keep the people, develop the people that you need in order to be the company you want to be. And these systems that I'm talking about right now are the foundations to that. You can't build a great business if you can't do these things at a world-class level. Now, building an org chart is a simple exercise. Anybody can do that on a whiteboard within minutes. But building one that's really well thought out, I'm talking about organizational design, where we really fill all the gaps and make sure that all these things are happening. That's a completely different exercise. Understanding how to build job descriptions that automate accountability, that ensure that we're training and developing people, that we're retaining them, that we're motivating them. This is a very different level of expertise. And it's okay if you're a landscaper that isn't an expert at building people yet, because let's be honest, oftentimes we're technicians that turn into tradespeople. But what we're really trying to do here is point out what systems will also make you a great business person. And we're going to cover a lot of the people ones here today, but I'm going to touch on a few others. And last, when we look at that last pillar, operations, we can then create systems that allow people to operate a lot more efficiently because there's standard operating procedures, because there's some workflow automation, because people understand exactly how the company works. And when we don't have documented systems or standard operating procedures combined with training, we're really kind of just expecting that people go out and figure it out on their own. We call it common sense. And quite honestly, common sense is just not a real thing. We all know this. Why would we expect that people could go and do all of the things that we've developed through many years of mastery that we have in our minds on their own, let alone doing it the same way? That's kind of chaos in a can. It's impossible to think that people are going to be able to read our minds and do the work the way we would always do it unless we take what's in our mind, put it on paper, put it into training, put it into a system that enables people to get the same results and learn that mastery in a sort of repetitious way. through a rhythm that they follow throughout the year. So when we think about the job descriptions, we want to get really specific on what they look like. So we're going to talk through that system. And then we're going to talk about goals and why job descriptions and org charts actually tee us up to build goals that resonate and make sense with our team. Oftentimes we talk about these high-level goals that mean nothing to everybody. Setting out and saying, I want to do 2 million or 3 million or 5 or 10 to an entire company, to every role in the company means nothing. Those are not goals. Those are just aspirations in their mind. Goals need to be really tangible to the person we're giving them to, which means we have to take that top line goal and we have to break that down so that each individual understands what good looks like in their role and where they're contributing to those overall company goals and why those goals are so important. And so one of the key things of the operating system that we teach in the accelerator program is scorecards. How do we create metrics that we actually put into the hands of each individual in the company that if they understand them and they understand how to optimize them, kind of force better habits, habits where people do start to become a little more accountable, knowing that if their leading indicators and if their business metrics are starting to actually come in on track, that they're going to end up with an incredible opportunity to move forward in the company into a new role and also unlock some incentives or some bonuses at the end of the year that give them a little bit of a kicker if they've done the right thing throughout the year. And I think it's really important that when the company wins, everybody in it wins. Because if we want to create this entrepreneurial atmosphere, it's pretty important that we find a way to pay them in a way that might be a little bit more based on efficiency and a little bit less based on trading their time for money. So we're going to talk through that a little bit as well. So we've got these scorecards, we get these figured out. And the last thing that I want to really talk about is why meetings are so important. We all hear about this. And I remember early in my career, many of my mentors would say, hey, Mark, you're not meeting with your staff enough, and you're canceling meetings with your staff. You schedule them, but then you say you're too busy to show up. And, you know, I think it took me a little too long. Maybe I was a little bit of a slow learner, or maybe I was just caught up in the pace of things. But it took me far too long to realize that when you just slow down and you spend time in recurring meetings, when you do one-to-ones, you build other people. When you do group meetings, you get this opportunity to reflect together and talk about reality, and then build systems or improve systems or pivot and make things better together. And when you actually take time to have meetings, yes, you're building people, yes, you're building systems, but really what you're creating is a machine, because recurring meetings are what create that momentum so that the business just keeps getting better and better and better and better. Now, early on when I started running meetings, my agendas weren't that good. What we were talking about wasn't that good. Every time we went to meet, I had to kind of think about what we should meet about and whether or not it was going to be effective. And it would bother me to sit there and have a meeting because I'd be worried about what was going wrong elsewhere. But the reality is if you don't slow down and fix the things that are going wrong, you're going to always live in chaos. And so the meeting rhythm is a system that I really want to talk about today as well. So I'm going to dive a little deeper into each one here, try to wrap up on time, give you guys a few times for questions. Benji, is there anything in the chat that we need to address before we move on?
Just some really great commentary. No questions at this point, but guys, if you have them along the way, go ahead and fire them in the Q&A box. And if I find kind of a organic moment to weave it in the train of thought that Mark is on, I'll do it. And if not, we'll just cache them till the end and hit them all there. But questions are welcome and encouraged. Put them in the Q&A box. I'm keeping track.
All right. Now, sometimes what happens is we start to think about an org chart as this thing we touch once a year. And I was like this for many years. I'd draw an org chart. Somebody would say, hey, do you have an org chart? I'd say, yeah, but it's not up to date. Have a look at it. It's kind of like this dusty thing on the shelf. Then I sort of started to realize by getting better coaching and really working with mentors that this isn't a one and done tool. This is actually a living, breathing document. This is something that is always evolving. And why wouldn't it be? People are on that org chart. If it's parked, then that means everybody's parked. That's a dangerous place to be. I want my org chart to be alive. I want people to know exactly what their responsibilities are when they look at that org chart. So one thing I've always really believed in is putting this revenue under management on the org chart so that the sum of all of its parts add up to the whole. So when I first start looking at it in its simplest form here, we're looking at a very basic org chart. I'm going to say, well, hey, this crew lead and this crew member combine, and these, two crew members, they're going to go out and they're going to produce 600,000 in revenue, and I want to get 12% profit from it. I want them to produce $205 an hour per person. Now, what does that really tell me? When I understand financials and I've got a system, it tells me a lot of things. It actually tells me what their wage is too, because if I know my field labor ratio is 25%, then what that tells me is I can actually pay the staff $56 an hour and still be profitable. Now, that $56 an hour is going to include the government burden, the retirement savings, the healthcare program, and their wages. But what it tells me is if I can produce that number, then I'm going to have a really well-paid team of landscape professionals, tradespeople, managers, whatever role they happen to be in. But it gives me that number. And again, these basic numbers don't seem like much until you learn how to use them. And that's why financial planning, that's why planning sales process, that's why building strong estimating matters. But again, we're pulling this all back to the org chart. And the magic number here is knowing how much revenue is each crew actually going to produce? And what is that revenue per hour and gross profit margin, that net profit that I'm left with at the end of the day? Is this gives me an opportunity to build everything else I mentioned. Better job descriptions with metrics, with goals, with targets, with responsibilities, with the training needed in order to be able to do this. Because it's not easy to build crews that can produce $200 per revenue hour. It's possible, but it's going to rely on a really good hiring system, a really good training system, a development system, an incentive plan that drives those behaviors. And these are the systems that are needed. But it all starts with the org chart. So the way I like to do it is I like to really think about the revenue under management. It really does lead to a different type of accountability. This is just a little diagram from this week's sprint. I was scribbling away with the group in the weekly sprint plan. When I start to plan a business, I start at the top, and sure, I say like, hey, the CEO's got to do $11.5 million, and that's a tall order. But I can tell you over the years, as I hyperscaled my own business, I didn't really think too much about that number. What I thought of was the sum of all of these parts, because I can't do anything at the top. I have to make sure that everybody in the company is very aware of what they need to do to get that $56 an hour and unlock their incentive plan. And in order for me to do that, I have to do a few things. I have to tell them what they're responsible for, which is their job description. I have to give them their metrics. I like to put it also in the job description. And I got to give them a scorecard so they can keep track of this. And I need to teach them how to actually do the work. And I got to give them systems that make it possible. How do I order my material? What do I do when I've got a flat tire? Where do I park my truck at night? Where do I get my fuel? All these systems have to be in place if that $200 an hour is ever going to become reality. Because if every time they have to go do something, they have to ask a question, I got a flat, what should I do? I want to get fuel, where should I go? Where do I get my material? Oh, I don't know what color the pavers are supposed to be. I don't have the grades for the job I'm about to go do. Or I'm not sure what order I'm supposed to go mow this route. Whatever it is, every time there's a flow interruption, that $200 an hour is getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And in this industry, 40% of your workday is waste. Where is it? It's sitting in all those missing systems. When you create systems and you show other people what good looks like and you set expectations, they now know exactly what to do and how to do it. And newsflash, us founders, us business leaders, the people at the top, we're not very special. We're just average people. The difference is we have the system in our head, and we can't expect other people, other average people just like us, to guess what those systems are and then get the same results. That's what's missing. Don't be afraid of it. Step into it. If other people can't get the same result as you do, there's something missing. It's probably a system that shows them how to do the work. And trust me, there's probably another one missing, which is, hey, how much do I actually need to do? What's my target? And if I do more, how much more do I make? Incentives. We're all human, and we have to remember that everybody that comes to work with us, they are also entrepreneurs. And there's a simple reason for that. Every single human is an entrepreneur because when they get out of bed in the morning, they go to work for themselves. They just choose a company to go and work for. No different than when we go sell a job to a client, we choose whether or not we want to work for them. It's the same thing. And if at the end of the day, people want to help and they want to build a better business so that they can provide more for themselves and for their families. And when we give them systems and training and incentives, we motivate them to do more of that. And when we have people that don't want to follow along, then we can then make the decision to get some new people. But if you're blaming the people before the systems are built, you're going to get stuck in a vortex where every year you keep hiring new people, and when you burn them out and they give up, you blame them and you do it again. And if you're in that state right now, I'm here to tell you, stop. This year, make a commitment to build the people and the system simultaneously. And trust me, at the end of next year, yes, the business will have made more money, but that's not the point. That's not my mission. My mission is to make sure that you actually have a better life. Don't burn yourself out. Don't burn your people. Don't underpay your staff to the point where they're living on food stamps. We need to eliminate the waste. We need to create a better industry together.
Mark,
And the way that I like to do it. Oh, go ahead.
we just had a great question from Dwayne that kind of ties into what you're saying, but I can wait till after this section if you
No,
want.
no, shoot.
Okay.
Yep.
He's just asking when a business owner sees something not done to his expectation and then goes out and does it themselves. Can you speak to the upside as well as the downside of that and how they might create a leadership plan to handle this common problem that plagues them?
I love this question. For many years, I used to do this. And for many years, I started to watch the leaders in my company start to do this. See, what we do often is we take our best people and we say, now you're the manager, or now you're the foreman, or whatever your title is. And they tend to do the same thing. And so what we end up with often is the owners and senior leaders always just going and solving all the problems themselves. And then we start to almost perpetuate the problem by saying, if I want it done right, I'll do it myself. Or there's no point in asking them. They screw it up every time anyway. Or I don't even need these people. And I think what ends up happening is the business always does one step forward and two steps back because we keep doing everything ourselves. And there is a time limitation. So the way to break that cycle is very simple, but it does require a lot of discipline. And what that looks like is very, very, very simple. Step one, identify the problem. Step two, ask yourself if there's a documented SOP, standard operating procedure, that solves that problem right now. Did I say step three? Step three, I'll say step three again. Build the SOP. Log into Lana and say, we're having a problem with the crews fueling their trucks at the weirdest times, or getting to site with no fuel, or stopping to fuel their truck on the way to a job site. Tell Lana what's going on, and then say, Lana, help me build an SOP to solve this problem. And I can tell you for sure, Lana will help you build an incredible SOP that identifies who owns it, who it impacts, and then you roll that SOP out the next day with some training. In your morning huddles, you talk about SOPs. Hey, we've been having a lot of problems lately with fuel. And yesterday, it popped up again. And rather than me keep solving the problem, I decided to document the procedure. And today we're going to talk about that. From now on, I expect you to do it this way. And if you're not, I'll give you a little bit of a verbal reminder a few times, but if you continue to avoid following this system, the best practices in the company, then sooner or later, we're not going to be able to work together anymore. And so I think you have to be honest with people and say, I've taken the time to document this with an SOP, and I'm going to hold you accountable to it from now on. And when you start doing that, instead of just going and doing it yourself, then people start to respect you. Not because you're carrying a big stick, but because you're leading by example, not by doing it for them. That's telling them that you don't believe in them. Instead, you're documenting what good looks like, and you're teaching them what the expectation is, and you're holding them accountable to a higher standard. In other words, you're making them a better person. You're making them more valuable. And in the future, you're going to have to pay them more because these systems operate so well that they get more done each day. And you should be happy when that time comes. I'm sure we all would be.
Great
Good.
answer. Thank you.
All right. So role clarity is key. I think what happens, if you're like me, over the years, I created job descriptions that were absolute crap. They were almost like job descriptions, like job ads, like, hey, apply here. That's not a job description. A job description should be a document that tells somebody exactly what they're expected to do, what they're expected to know, what responsibilities they have, who they're accountable to, who they're supposed to help or what they're supposed to achieve, what metrics they're supposed to end up with after the work's been done. We want to be clear with people because, after all, if we're going to show up for work every day and somebody doesn't tell us that basic information, that's not going to feel very good. The worst thing we can do to another human is put them in a dark room and not tell them where they are or where they're going or what is happening next. And think about when you come to work without a clear job description that clearly tells them where they're supposed to be at the end of the year, what good looks like, what their responsibility for. It's kind of the dark room. And I think making people show up for work day after day, not knowing whether or not they're winning, is kind of like punishment. The job description has to make it clear. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to get role clarity by actually building good job descriptions. What do they look like? They're very detailed. We've got an overview, we've got our crew responsibilities, we want crew leadership and execution, financial and sales management. Under financial, it says very clearly here, I need $800,000 with 45% gross profit and $220 revenue at 12% net. This is a different job. Yes, everybody wants to be a foreman or a crew manager, but when I say, hey, wait a minute, I want to make sure that you know what you're signing up for, because that's the job. And it's not an easy one. Safety, quality, efficiency, building people, happy customers. This is a hard job. Are you sure you're ready for this? And oftentimes when I would have this conversation with people, they'd say, you know what, maybe I should wait one more year. People don't rush into wanting jobs they're not ready for when they're well-documented job descriptions. But when there's no job description, everybody thinks it's easy. In fact, I used to notice that people would think when they got a bump or they went to the next level that somehow things were going to get easier. Once I'm a C level, everything's going to be easy. Quite the opposite. The goals get bigger as you climb the ladder. And so oftentimes people, just by having a better job description, know they're not ready. But also, like client and crew engagement, safety and compliance, these are all big things that need to be very clear. More importantly, I want to make sure they understand their KPIs. And when I build job descriptions that show them exactly what their KPIs look like, when they understand that in order to succeed in this role, this is what you're going to have to achieve, it helps those who are ready actually make the effort in the right areas to get these results. Because when we don't tell them, they're going to put effort in each day, but it's probably not in the area that the business needs or that they need. And so we want to be clear. Then in the job description, what I see all too often missing is there's no accountability. Nobody knows exactly who does what. A RACI matrix is very simple. It's an accountability structure. It tells people these are the things you're responsible for as a crew manager, and here is exactly who you're accountable to. We expect you to be doing quality workmanship, and if you're not, the construction manager is going to climb all over you. We expect you to have good client communication and satisfaction. If there's a problem there, the project manager is going to climb all over you. Now, again, every company has different roles, but we want to make sure they understand what they're responsible for and who they're accountable to, so that if this is failing, they're expecting to hear from this person. We want to make sure they know who else is involved in the loop and who's going to be informed of this. And when we put this in the job description, everybody gets super clear on what they're responsible for, who they're accountable to, and who downstream of them has to be reporting upward to them as well. So we want to get clear. We want to have our company values, and more importantly than anything, we want to have a training matrix. Now, in my company, if you come along and you say you want to be a crew manager, that's a big deal. You have to first off be certified in your trade or your technical abilities as a technician. But then I'm thinking, before I want you to be out running my projects, carrying my wallet, handling my customers, growing my people for me, you're going to need some training. Now, not just a bit of training, that's going to be a lot of training. This, to get to the point where you're going to be a crew manager, now you're essentially running your own business within my business. That's not 10 courses. It's not 20. It's 50 courses. I have to put an incredible program together to build these managers over time. Now, if we have the program in place and if it's automated, they can be taking this management training as they're starting to get toward the end of their apprenticeship or as they're in their third year as a technician. This way I can start to make sure that they understand everything about the business long before we actually need them to step into that role. System 3, goal setting. Every company sets goals, very few set them right. Goal setting for me, it took me years to get this right. I have spent millions of dollars on coaching. I've had the best mentors that I could find in just about every category of my business. I've hired my mentors. I've hired them to come on full-time. I've hired them as coaches. I've hired them as advisors. I've hired them as agencies. Over the years, I've spent millions, tens of millions, learning the best practices. And I'll tell you the thing that took me the longest to figure out, it's almost embarrassing, is setting good goals. When you don't set good goals, nobody around you actually understands what the hell you're trying to do. And every year I try to explain it in 3-hour, 5-hour, 8-hour meetings. And I think everybody left as confused as when they got there. But when you learn to categorize your goals, and these are categories here, number 1, I want to grow my revenue and my profit in my business. If I want to grow my revenue and profit, there's some things I'm going to need to do. What are they? I have to be specific, and that's why SMART goals are so important. Lana helps you build the SMART goals. In the accelerator program each week, what we do is we highlight where the gaps or problems are in most businesses. We deploy systems that we've pre-built that you update, And then you plug them into our AI platform that makes those things happen in an automated rhythm. Now, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to say, like, what exactly do we need to do as a company? So I want to get really specific. Growing revenue and profit, there's going to be 4 or 5 things that I need to do. I'm going to update my pricing. I got to get my budget done. I'm going to deploy my incentive program. I'm going to update my production rates. And I'm going to do all this in Q1. And if I do this stuff in Q1, I'm going to create some new goals in Q2. You see, I can't create all my goals right now for the whole year. What I'm doing is I've got 5 overarching goals. Number 1, I want to grow my revenue and profit and my wages. That's important to make sure that your whole team understands that you're not just growing revenue to grow revenue. Tell them why. I want more profit, and I want more profit in your pocket, which means higher wages. Grow people, grow culture. Improve my efficiency, provide the best customer experience, and build a market leader. Now, most companies would just put those ones in black, the big 5, on the wall and say, those are our goals for the year. Well, that doesn't get you anywhere because that doesn't tell people what you're going to do to get there. But when you break it down with these subcategories each quarter and we say, hey, in Q1, we're going to build better job descriptions. We're going to get our career development plans out. We're going to get a training matrix for every role. We're going to actually build some training courses and deploy them in Greenius so that throughout the year when we're too busy to think about this, the courses are running themselves. We're automating it, right? And then we want to deploy a meeting structure, which I'm going to talk about next. Now, when we think about improving efficiency, there's some more things we're going to do in Q1. And when these things are all done, and I've done some things to create a better customer experience, and I've done some things to create a better brand message or brand in the market, in Q2, I'm going to update the list. What 3 to 5 things in each of these 5 categories am I going to do in Q2 to get a little better? What am I going to do in Q3, Q4? So 4 cycles a year, I'm going to set goals that kind of force continuous improvement to just become the way it is. Now, in order for all this stuff to happen, I have to be willing to install a rhythm in the business. And one of the key things with the LeanScaper operating system is installing a meeting rhythm. You can't possibly expect all of this to happen if you're not going to take time to meet about it and build the systems together so that the machine becomes reality. So system 4, I want to make sure that I've got buy-in. I want to make sure that people understand the scoreboard. I want to create a scoreboard for everyone in the company. I want to make sure they understand what their metrics are. I want to understand them to understand what their targets are so that I can create incentives. So I might say, I want your revenue goal to be 475. I want your revenue per hour to be 165. And I want your gross profit to be 45%. Now they know what I'm expecting at the end of the year. But now also on people or on operations, I want to make sure that you're within your hours on projects. I want to make sure that your crew score is good. Then on people, I want to make sure if you're a crew leader, I want to make sure your team's happy. So I want to get an employee retention rate. I want to get an employee happiness score to make sure that our staff are actually happy working with us, that they like the job. I want to make sure that everybody's doing their training. So I'm building people. And of course, I want to make sure it's safe. And now when I look down here at customer, I've got some more metrics down here. My customer satisfaction's got to be good. My renewal rate's got to be good. I want to make sure we're not spending too much on warranty. So I've got some metrics there as well. And when I create a balanced scorecard like this, I get really good results because everybody knows that this is what matters. It's this stuff that matters. So they're thinking about improving the business because I've taught them what matters. That's the key. And as we go through this, then we can actually have meetings. I can't have good meetings with people if they don't really know what we're expecting. And this is why the org chart, the job descriptions, and then really starting to think about what it is that we're trying to achieve with scorecards matters, because now I get to have meetings where people are showing up intentionally trying to get better results. They understand the metrics. They understand we're building systems that make the metrics more possible or more achievable. And I need to have a meeting structure to make this happen. So in the LeanScaper operating system, what we try to do is help businesses understand as early in the year as possible. If you're along for the ride on the accelerator program, we'll be hitting this first week of January. We have to get the meeting cadence set in the company so that you actually meet and solve the problems in the business, so that you do change your reality by the end of the year. Where we spend our time today dictates our entire future. And if we don't actually spend the time to meet and build the systems, then we're not building the people, and we're definitely not going to change our lives over the course of the year. So in our annual meetings, what we're talking about is alignment. Annual meetings create this alignment for the year where we can rally around a budget, a capacity plan. We can discuss strategy. How are we going to get there? Then we can really revisit that 3-year vision and build those high-level 1-year goals that I just talked about. Then, in the quarterly meetings, we're going to have some longer meetings once a quarter. And what we're going to do is we're going to review the metrics. We're going to see how we're trending against the goals. In Q1, we said we'd do this. Did it happen or not? Then we're going to talk about the mission. We're going to talk about whether or not we're getting where we wanted to go. We're going to look at the scorecards. And then we're going to make some decisions on what the goals are for the next quarter, so that if Q1 wasn't quite done, we might carry a few of those forward, but we're going to add more to the plate. So within the 5 overarching goals, we're going to decide what we're going to do in each category to get a little bit better, because continuous improvement really relies on quarterly goal setting. Then each month, we're going to have a meeting. And in those meetings, we're going to talk about the score. We're going to talk about the top issues, the things that are holding us back, the stuff that we need to do, or where we need to spend our time to actually deploy all of these great ideas that we're coming up with, which is usually building SOPs, creating system improvements that drive better behavior, better outcomes, and really allow our people to get better and step into that next position that they might be hoping to work toward. Then in the weekly sprints, what we're doing is we're really just every week we're meeting and we're just talking about priorities, roadblocks, flow interruptions. Oftentimes we're talking about the field to office handoffs, whether it's sales to operations or operations to finance, or maybe developing people and staying on top of training or hiring. We're talking about all the stuff, all the stuff that we kind of refer to as being in the weeds. We have to talk about what's happening every week in order to make sure that we're not kind of getting off the rails. And then most importantly, our daily huddles. When we set out every day and we talk about the wins, when we talk about what's going really well, we lift everybody's spirits, we maintain the momentum, we talk about what we want to do differently, make sure everybody's safe. Most important, we really make sure that we actually focus on efficiency. What information's missing? What material do we need? What people do we need? Are the subs going to be there? Are the clients aware that we're showing up? All these resourcing things that we all know makes the difference between winning and losing. We have to have huddles and talk about it, and we have to talk about it in a way where we actually surface all of this information, but more importantly, that we're developing people, that we're helping them create new ways of thinking. We're creating these neurological pathways where every single day they get used to thinking ahead, because there's meetings and there's agendas that force that conversation every day, so that people actually start to think proactively about what needs to be true in order for them to win the day, the week, the month, and the year. And then obviously we're always talking schedule and timeline. Are we done? Do we have this? Do we have that? And ultimately, these daily huddles provide an opportunity for people to just ask for help or to offer help. Either way, it's a big win. That's the 5 systems that I wanted to talk about today. I'll take a few questions. It's okay if we run a little over. I am sorry I didn't leave enough time for everybody. If you've got somewhere else to be, I would love to just say before the questions hit that I'm incredibly thankful for all of the support we've had this year at LeanScaper. It has been unbelievable. We are shocked at how fast this movement has grown, the support that so many people have shown. It's honestly the most gratifying experience I've ever had in business. It's been incredible to see the support from the community. So I just wanted to thank you and say God bless you and your family over the holidays and in the new year.
Chat box feels the same way, Mark. We got a lot of really awesome comments, and the feeling is mutual and goes around 360 degrees. We do have a few awesome questions piling up here. So let me hit a few. Question from Tiffany. I'm constantly developing SOPs, job descriptions, and new systems to keep our operations running smoothly. For an entire quarter, anytime a problem came up, I created an SOP, reviewed it with the team, and included weekly quizzes. These quiz grades were then factored into their KPI bonuses. But during that time, I noticed a lot of resistance. Some team members were frustrated and felt like I was creating a system for everything, even when they had helped build some of those processes themselves. They didn't want to follow the steps and they pushed back whenever a new system was introduced. Going forward, I want to implement SOPs in a way that makes the team feel supported rather than micromanage. That's really important. How do I create a structure and accountability while still keeping morale high and ensuring they feel involved and valued?
Yeah, I think that is the biggest reason for the meetings, quite honestly, is when you're having meetings and you're talking about metrics like how much revenue we produced or estimated versus actual hours, for example. Usually what ends up happening is we're talking about missed targets. Now, the easiest way to talk about missed targets, in my experience, is not to blame the person whose target it was. It's to blame the system. And when you sit down and you're talking about scorecards each week, each month, each quarter, what you're actually doing is you're reflecting on the result, and then you're saying, hey, we didn't quite get there, or hey, we did get there in these 3 areas, but we didn't in this one. Then what you're saying is, we must be missing some systems that are going to enable us to get there. What systems do you think we should build next in order to make your life easier, this result more achievable? Could be a happier customer or a happier team. What system do you think we could put in place to get a little bit better? Now, the easiest way to do this, I always believe in just using a continuous improvement meeting, which for owners and leaders sometimes feels like a little bit of a roast. But really, what you're doing is you're standing there and vulnerably saying, once a month, with everybody in the company or everybody in a department, if it's a really large company. And what you're saying is, hey, what can we do to get better? Where are the flow interruptions in your workday? What holds you back? What pisses you off? What frustrates you? Let's just talk about it. And when we write all those down, then what we actually get this opportunity to do is we've gotten all the feedback from our team to say, this stuff sucks. And then we say, great, let's build some SOPs that solve these things. And when they start to realize that their ideas, the things that are bothering them, turn into SOPs, then they actually buy into the SOPs because they understand that you built those to serve them. Where when you build the SOPs, when you build the systems because you think that you know it all, when you come out and say, here's the new system to solve this problem, their egos stand up to protect them. And their ego says, are you saying I'm not good enough? Do you see the difference there? Number one, they're telling you what's wrong and you're saying, hey, I'll build a system for that. I hope you use it. Versus me building the system and saying, here, use this because you're not quite hitting the mark. Very different. So we want to make sure that we always ask for input. Then we map it to our new SOP. Then we roll it out and say, I built this with these 3 people because you guys told us this was broken and we decided that this is the best way forward. Will you use this system for us and for you long enough to tell us if it could be better? In other words, if the SOP stinks, come back and tell us it stinks. We're good with that. We just want the SOP to become a continuous improvement system, a document that we keep updating so that everybody knows what the best practice is. Because if you just go do it your way and that's better than the SOP, then we've failed, because what we want to do is make our SOPs best practices. So again, just make sure that you involve them. And trust me, I don't think they're going to push back. People always get behind things that they help build.
Mike has got a question here that's it's kind of meta. Like there's something deep to it. And I want to try, I'm going to ask you to answer it by not saying the SMART goals thing, because we did that already this session, but there's something here really deep. He's saying, how do you know if your goals are good? Is there a
Okay,
way, like, can you tell with your
there is.
team? Is there a
There
signal?
is.
There's got to be a feedback loop that
There
you're
is.
like, hey, I nailed it on the goal setting.
There is a very simple way to do this. Most of us overlook it. I have overlooked this for years. Don't set goals until you begin with the end in mind. It has to be clear. This is why vision is so important. We hear about like creating a vision statement. We think, well, what's the point? Like, vision is the point. Where do I actually want to be 10 years from now? 5 years from now, 3 years from now, 1 year from now? And that's what I'm here to talk about today is, where do you want to be on this day next year? Where do you want to be? What do you want your life to look like? I don't care about your business. What do you want your life to look like? Do you want to have more time? Do you want to have more money in the bank? Do you want to be more present? Do you want to be relaxed? Do you want your cortisol levels to be lower? Do you want to be 30 pounds lighter? Do you want to be a better husband? Do you want to be a better wife? Do you want to be a better parent, a better friend, a better boss? That's the stuff that matters. It's not about money. Fulfillment comes from actually becoming a better version of yourself each and every day. And so start with a vision that looks like that. Where do I want to be this time next year? I want to understand my business better. I want to be a better person. I want to be more approachable. And then create goals that get you there. Begin with the end in mind. Write it down. Make that vision so vivid that you can see it clearly. And then you say, what has to be true in order for that to become my new reality? And this is first principles thinking. Log into Lana and say, hey, Lana, describe first principles thinking to me, and I'm pretty sure she'll break it down for you. I want to begin with the end in mind, and then I have to say what has to be true in order for that to become my new reality. And I'm here to tell you, the business is a reflection of your leadership, whether you own it or you're a senior leader. You have to work on yourself as a leader and the leaders around you, build the leaders, then you build the systems together, and then the outcome, the machine, is a byproduct of that. And so what has to be true at the end of the year? And then what am I going to do in Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4 that will allow me to get there like a ladder, like I'm climbing a set of stairs? First, I get to the first step, then I get to the third, then the fourth, fifth, sixth. So goals have to really work that way. I'm going to get where I need to be in Q1 so that I can get where I need to be in Q2. Nothing happens overnight. And trust me, happiness does not come from the destination. The worst day of my life was probably when I had some of those destination moments, when I sold businesses. Those are not good days, trust me. They're the hardest days of your life. The destination sucks. It's the incremental improvement of getting there that has all the joy. When you see that you've taken a step forward, it feels good. I always say, if it's not okay right now, that's a good thing. Because if everything's okay, there might not be anything left to do. Everything will be okay in the end. And if it's not okay right now, that's a good thing, because that means it's not the end. And so be aware of where you want to be, and then just keep stepping up one day at a time.
Mike, I hope that answers your question. Christian, let's get that slide up here to wrap. I just wanted to, we're 10 minutes over, so I appreciate the patience, everyone. as Mark alluded to, we've had a really incredible 2025, and we've got a plan to kick off 2026 really well too. If you are not yet looking at thinking about booking tickets for the revenue intensive, I really want to ask you to sincerely do that. That would be a great Christmas present to us, and I'll tell you why. Christian's going to pull up the actual the page for us. This lineup that we've put together, if you can show the agenda, Christian, I just wanted to walk through a few things that I don't know if people have seen really clearly yet. We've designed this in such a way to be much more role specific. When we say we're doing a revenue intensive, that's a big catch-all term. There's a lot that requires marketing intel, there's a leadership component, there's a customer experience component. There's so much that goes into this. Selling, we've thought through that at a very deep level and built track by track plans for each of those core functions in your business that drive revenue. So, you guys have all heard about Simon Sinek speaking the first morning, but we have our advisors coming in and doing very, very granular sessions like, underused marketing channels that landscapers should be doubling down on, recruitment culture and compensation for high growth companies. Will teach you how to build the sales team you've always wanted, the customer automation playbook. How do you make customer experience an automatic system in your business? Story brand for landscapers. Diego's going to do an amazing session. The list goes on. We really would love to see as many of you there as possible. It's in Scottsdale, and you can register on this page that we're on right now. It's just leanscaper.com/events. There's a big bold button that says revenue intensive. You click on that, you learn more. If you have not been to a LeanScaper event yet, the first ticket is on us. So that is our offer. And this is the last monthly free of the year. So thank you for an amazing 2025. We can't wait to kick off next year. I hope all of you have some wonderful time with your family. Get some rest. You're going to need it. Big things ahead. Mark, thank you. Christian, thank you. Everyone, take care. We will see you all very soon.